Alright guys, TacticalRab again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. The first CDL Major of the season officially begins today. The Boston Major is about to get underway. 4 massively important winners bracket games. The pick of the bunch, no doubt about it. OpTic Texas versus Miami Heretics. A big game happened on that one this past weekend. OpTic will be looking for revenge, and Pred certainly seems ready for it based on the evidence we're going to see today. But FaZe coach Crowder actually says he's not expecting much difference this year between online and LAN play. What does that mean for the pick of the games today? Very much interested in your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I greatly appreciate it. This is a great picture as well. I know that Toronto did this whole mental health thing, which I thought was really nice, and they got all their players to hold up a little sign. But the one that Scrappy was holding up here, don't be afraid to start the conversation. I wonder what sort of conversation Scrappy will be starting on main stage this weekend. There was also big drama in the challenger side, as is always the case. I actually couldn't believe this when I know some people were talking about it last night at the venue, that this guy OL Noel was meant to go to the Boston event this weekend. He actually got fired from his job, I believe, because he decided to go, and basically they were like, alright, we're not happy with you anymore, we're going to get rid of you. And the day before, 30 minutes after he gets fired, a day before the matches are due to start, effectively a day and a half before, his team drop him. So there really is nothing like a challengers bracket way down in there in the pits. So his teammates explained to him here why he's been dropped, and the unfortunate circumstances. There was then the other kind of response to it as well on the situation and the offer that people potentially had, and changing teams last minute. It's a bit of a mess. I don't know if he is going to be able to play anymore, but if he is, hopefully these two teams match up, because it would be one of the storylines for the ages, and the pit is going to be entertaining. Pretty sure it starts Friday. It's usually how it goes. They're also doing it in a different venue this year, because last year, I don't know if you guys remember, but it was so cold in Boston last year. This time it's actually rather mild for Boston, I'm pretty sure, this time of year. But they did it in the kind of, the upper stands in a way, or the boxes, I guess, at the Fenway Park. So this year they're doing it across the road at the House of Blues, I think, which is probably going to be a much better and warmer venue, because last year was a bit of a mess on that one, because people were playing in coats, playing in gloves. I don't think that's going to be necessary this year, so that's an update on that. There was also this that Doug spotted, because lots of people are saying, and I think for good reason, should we put challengers especially back to console, because it's just way easier to run, less hackers, saves loads of money. The PCs are a disaster really to set up, to be honest, especially the amount of money it costs to get all the PCs for challenges and the expense to actually make it all work. Going back to console would make a lot of sense, especially when the PlayStation 5 has added an update that is able to disable the use of a Cronus, so there's potential advantages there. The issue is, of course, that now Microsoft own Activision, so there's basically 0% chance that competitive COD is ever going to be done on a PlayStation again, but it could be done on an Xbox theoretically if they wanted to do that. I imagine that's at least what would be the case. There's also this for you guys. This was rumored for a little while now on the Subliners Academy roster, which they're signing of Gunless, Paulex, Classic, and Decimate. So that's the team before. Of course, Paulex recently, well, not recently really, but he was on the Subliners, right, a couple of years ago now, when they had, they won that Prom event, and then they got second at their home major, and they did pretty well, qualified for champs, one of the craziest storylines ever. So those guys are now back in business. And there's also talk about this NYSL Battle Pass thing, that if you, I guess, purchase it, then you can actually make decisions on the way their team is run, and decisions they make, and had some part to play in exactly which team they signed. So that's kind of cool that New York are doing that. We'll see how, I guess, they get on this weekend. I imagine they're going to be out there. The favourites, though, for sure, for the Challengers bracket is going to be FaZe Cloud Black. Here's a Seam and Kirsch getting ready to go for the weekend here with what is actually a really sick jersey, I think, for the FaZe Black guys. Also going to be interesting to see how they match up against, the European teams, because usually the European teams, historically, there's less strength in depth in Europe than in North America, but the top teams in Europe historically have been very good, because often they don't, they tend to stick together more, they tend to ride it out more, and tend to be a little bit better than the average. So, but FaZe Black have been the same for some time, so it's interesting to see how Nasty's team with Beans, Bance, and Hixie, those guys, match up against FaZe Black if they do. But looking forward to that this weekend. Also, Donnie Tempest going to be down there as well. He was mentioning in this same episode with Ace, actually, that when they dropped, their 2-reel, right, they had on the Paris Legion last year, and he did okay, but wasn't great. Eventually, they decided to make the change that they did. And Temp actually said that the reason why they dropped him is because he's using a regular controller, no scuff or anything. There's even an argument that people have made. Should scuffs even be allowed? People always talk, the pros always talk about, oh, well, single tap to run, auto tack sprint reduces the skill gap. There is an argument that if every player had to play, on a regular controller, that would increase the skill gap. But that's never going to happen. And I'm not really sure we want to be forcing players to play claw, right, which is where you use your index finger to press the buttons on the D-pad, because there's a general feeling that that's probably not good for your hands. I know some people do it and they're fine, they get no pain. Some people do it and they get pain in their hands. So, there's questions questions on that. But for many years, honestly, like during even the Jetpack era, Octane used a default controller with just, I don't even think he played Claw, maybe he did, during like Advanced Warfare, like all the games before Advanced Warfare, Octane played default. Pretty sure Scraps as well, like Red Reserve player, formerly of FaZe, obviously, he's now retired, like UK player. He also did a similar thing, like he would play with like just a normal controller, no scuff, no nothing. Like you would just press X to jump and have to take your thumb off the stick, which is wild. The pros can actually do that and play very well. So it's not, you know, out of the realms of possibility that a player can use a regular controller and still work, but I guess the team felt like he was just putting himself at such a mechanical disadvantage compared to the competition that it was untenable to keep him on the team. This though is the Boston Major trophy. Actually looks kind of cool. I actually really like it, to be fair. I wish, some people have said maybe they should have added some colour to it. I think maybe with a bit of a colour palette it would look cool, but at the end of the day, when people hold this up, it's going to look great. And last year, of course, this event was the scene of a pretty extraordinary circumstance when JurNii decided to retire right on the main stage. It was very interesting timing because Scump had recently retired, you know, Boston then just, they had a decent tournament run, I think, and then they went out of the tournament. Then I guess it was Saturday, Sunday, where JurNii did this speech, and then of course said at the end of the speech, like, the future is green or whatever, and people were like, okay, obviously he's going to OpTic, there's a kind of a no-brainer to discuss that. But yesterday was media day, so, and actually because of the way that the season is working here, there's been no event so far, so they had to do everything yesterday. All of the headshots, right, which is exactly what's going on here. We'll talk about that a little bit more in just a second. And then all of like the hype videos that they did. They had the CDL guys, they were set up everywhere. They had like interviews they were doing, and there was lots of stuff going on yesterday at the venue going into the new season. So this is where the boys were set up to do their headshots, and we were up here as well. So just to explain exactly what's going on behind the scenes right now, this weekend, myself and Ace and Breaking Point guys, we've got like a booth set up, and basically we're going to watch party the weekend, kind of like what Scump's going to do. The first day, we can't go in on the Thursday, which is today. We can't go in the Mass Mutual Lounge, which is where we're going to be for the rest of the weekend, just because they've got some party in there, and there's so much stuff going on in there at the moment. So for the day one, we're going to be over here, which is exactly where this was taking place yesterday, which is on the third floor on like the left-hand side. So we were like setting all things up here, getting all the equipment ready, figuring out loads of problems that we had to solve that you never expected to come up, and it was all kind of fun. And at the same time, they were doing the player like headshots, right? So they had Joe Brady doing the player headshots, and they had like the boys were coming in every so often, and it was Pred, you know, like doing the flexing and all this stuff. Also, if you guys want to follow me on Instagram, like I'm not going to put anything like massive on there or anything probably, but I'll put some things up during the day, and I have been over the last couple of days. I know that like people have been tagging me in stories and stuff, so if you guys want to like follow me, it's top link in the description, all that good stuff. I'm not going to like vlog it or anything because there's just like too much happening to make that happen, but yeah, so it was media day. But they also, in the Mass Mutual Lounge, so where it's like on the third floor, whatever, on the other side, they had a setup yesterday for recording some of the intro content for the scene. So they had all the players coming through, they were doing like some headshot angles, and every so often, you know, the players would come here to do the stuff. So this was honestly hilarious. This clip cracked me up so much yesterday when I saw it from OpTic Texas, where they had the boys go through, and I honestly rate this from Pred, how serious he didn't take it seriously, did he really? But he didn't do the normal thing that the players do, which is, you know, just walk through and kind of make a cool phase. Pred went all out for this one with the sound effects as well.
And action! Ah! And action! Ah!
So definitely it seems the intimidation tactics coming into play. Like I can watch this clip forever and I just still find it funny, to be honest. I love the fact that the other guys are cracking up, and then Pred comes back around the corner, I'm pretty sure here as well, after he's like done his little stint, and then they get Kenny to do the same thing. So I just thought this was great. The players are all in there as well. They had to do like the signings for the upper deck cards and all this stuff. Like it was a busy day for all involved yesterday, and then, well, they went out to eat afterwards. So this is the setup they've got, of course, with the boys. Like Dashy's cheesed in this picture as well, which I think is pretty funny. They've got Karma here, of course, JP's here as well. So yeah, they're looking to go for the weekend. It's going to be interesting to see how they bounce back from the most recent weekends, because there was actually some talk here on Scrap Time from Crowder on online COD versus on LAN COD, shall we say. Because this weekend, there's been some talk from OpTic that, well, you know, online it was a bit wonky, really. They had the ping issues against the FaZe series, and maybe the feeling is that a team like Miami, their playstyle, you know, hyper-aggressive, the way they play as a team might work a bit better online than LAN, and there's maybe some evidence to suggest that from previous seasons, but I think you never really know until you get there, to be honest. And sure, LAN COD does play a little bit differently, but does it make a massive difference in terms of results? Not necessarily, right? I do think people have generally overblown this in COD history, that, you know, saying that, well, you know, online and LAN is massively different. Really, the best online teams tend to be the best LAN teams. There are exceptions both ways, and that is worth considering. But Crowder's point is basically it doesn't make as much difference as people tend to suggest, i.e. some of the series results we maybe saw this past weekends, you know, it's not like OpTic necessarily, you know, just got online CODed. You know, they obviously didn't play well enough, and I'm sure they know that, but at the same time, there's been some talk from OpTic that, well, LAN is going to be a different story, and I think it should be, right? This team on LAN, you know, you'd think, especially because OpTic have always, like, been a vibey team, and that's definitely the way that this team is, and maybe there's pros and cons to that, because, you know, obviously you want to be vibing, but at the same time, you want to ensure that in practice, you're willing to, like, you know, call each other out, and, you know, sometimes that creates some friction, and it's easier to maintain the vibes if you just say, oh, you know, whatever, it's fine, and I don't know, it kind of goes both ways, I think, but that kind of circumstance does probably help when you turn up to LAN, you're sitting next to each other, and you can bring the energy, but Miami is certainly going to bring the energy as well on the other side, because that is literally what they do for a living. So these are the games for today, and not gonna lie, on paper, the first three series could be pretty comfortable in favour of the theoretical top 4 team. And this kind of goes to show why the seeding situations have been pretty advantageous, especially for FaZe. Number 1 seed is always kind of nice because the 8th seed is usually going to be a weaker team. But, you know, if you're number 2 seed like Toronto, I'm pretty sure, whatever, like Surge, the 7th seed, is still a pretty decent team in that spot. And then Rocker are actually the 6th seed after making a bit of a run. To be fair, Rocker, like I'm pretty sure, as far as I'm concerned, their run was pretty easy, right? Like, they played a lot of easier teams, and they did eventually, after starting 0-4, make a bit of a comeback to finish respectably. But I still don't think I can reasonably predict them to beat the New York Subliners here. Subliners should just be better, really, in all the modes. And Rocker, I don't know, they impressed me a little bit in those series, and I do think they've made some strides, but I still think they ride or die with Lins to some respects, and I think they played, right, in the qualifier stages. I'm pretty sure Subliners beat them kind of comfortably, so I'm expecting that probably to continue. But I do think that's the interesting series, apart from the final one. Of the other 3, the one that I'm kind of most interested to see is Rocker Subliners, because, I don't know, New York are a good team, obviously, they're the world champions, but there's something about that team which makes me feel like they're still somewhat vulnerable. Like, I don't expect them to come into... They haven't played that well so far, really. They've had some decent series, but they've looked pretty vulnerable in most matches they've played. Even against Boston, of course, it went game 5. They had to clutch up using their search and destroy, and their search has been great. And against Rocker, that should probably be enough, because Rocker search and destroy has not been great at all, really, apart from when they play Karachi search, which Rocker are kind of good at. If Subliners don't want to play that, they get that out of the series, they should be able to, you know, get the victory here. But I still think I'm interested to see how it goes. Then Ultra Surge is, you know, again, interesting. Okay, another classic CDL graphic here with, we're missing a T here from Seattle. So a minor mistake, but it is what it is. This team on paper should be one of those, like, better on LAN teams, right? Lots of LAN experience, multiple champions on this roster, and also if the game does play slightly slower on LAN, people are, you know, that's just how things tend to go. It might favour Surge just because that's, like, what they are as a team. They, you know, they've got a lot of AR players. I think if the game plays slower, it might favour them, but Toronto are probably just too good in this spot, so we've got to take them. But then the final series, Miami versus OpTic, right? They played this past weekend. I'm sure there's been lots of learnings either way, and let's not forget that if OpTic win this series, or if Miami win this series, they probably play FaZe. So this is the way the top side of the bracket is first and last here, the bottom side of the bracket is second and third. Just to mention for you guys quickly, FaZe and Gorillas, the loser of that plays Thieves, the loser of Subliners Rocket plays Carolina Real Ravens, the loser of Ultra Surge plays Boston, which is very interesting, and the loser of Miami OpTic plays Vegas. So those losers games are all on the Friday, today's games are all on the winner's side. So that's going to do it for today. Massively looking forward to this weekend. I'm sure I'll see a few of you guys at the venue as well over the course of this weekend. Feel free to come and say hello, all that good stuff. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.